While I feel like it's still a long ways off, things move very, very fast in the fall, and ARH8 is going to be here before we know it. And with it comes another rotation. So today I'm going to talk about why it's arguably, actually scratch that, almost certainly Destiny's most impactful rotation yet. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, Destiny folks. Happy Destiny Friday, and welcome to Dice Commando and the Commando cast. Now, we've certainly had our share of significant rotation events over the last few years, and at the risk of sounding like the dude from The Bachelor, this next one is going to change everything.
And it's something that's going to change everything.
Now, to be fair, on the surface, this isn't a milestone in any real sense like we've seen over the last few rotations. When Covert Missions rotated out, it took with it the dreaded transformation set, but more importantly, it marked the end of the FFG era. A major deal emotionally, but practically minimal. With implementation of the reprint lists, the impact to the game was actually pretty limited. Now, when Faltering Allegiance's ARH1 rotated out, it was a milestone because it took away many of the cards that defined the beginning, at least, of the ARH era, like Vibrosword and so on. Detect lost a great deal of its fundamental base support, which kind of cornered an entire playstyle. And that brings us to Redemption ARH2. So Redemption is a fantastically designed set in and of itself, and likely holds the title of the most game-changing set yet. Some incredibly awesome card designs and archetypes came out of the set. For me, RDM Kylo was an awesome character that brought many older characters like Dengar and Pyre back to the forefront. I was really enjoying playing a lot of those decks. Characters like RDM Maul remains relevant in Fringe builds even to this day. But this game-changing excitement came at a price. Redemption is widely recognized as being a massive, gigantic step up in power level. See, when Redemption dropped, it dropped like a bomb into the Destiny meta. Nearly everyone was on the new cards, at least running one new character. They had to, as the massive power level increase nearly demanded it. In Faltering Allegiances, the biggest problem character, if you will, was none other than Taron Malicos. Not just due to his dual personality of bringing a hero keyword to the villain pool, but rather it was the fact that he kind of broke a fundamental rule that had been in the game thus far, that characters fundamentally do one thing. Instead, Taron could do two things. He had a static ability and a power action. And it was on this point that Redemption said, "Hold my blue milk." Cards like Hondo and the associated arc of Pirates not only dominated the format, but made choke such a thing that we lost a good portion of wavering players back during the day. Only after several nerfs did this archetype fall on the back burner. And of course, then there was Benthic, bringing battlefield control and damage, plus a bitch in power action, and piloting to boot, which effectively served as a sort of after-activation ability. On the hero side, there were awesome designed ability heroes like Apprentice Leia and Admiral Akbar. While they drove some pretty neat archetypes, not just in that set, but in the future, they also drew nerfs to bring them back down. And let's not forget about the massive boost of piloting, a much-awaited expansion of the format. Heroes like Dak Ralter and the infamous Benthic brought ships and piloting back with a vengeance. This was something enjoyed by many and generally considered a good thing. Run and gun is always a necessary archetype in the game. But it wasn't just the characters that defined Redemption's power level and its impact to Destiny. The cycle of removal cards set the new bar for what was considered good. Headstrong, Power of the Tribe, and, to a lesser extent, Your Powers Are Weak, have been absolute staple cards for their entire life. To this day, these haven't really been eclipsed, which is likely a good thing overall. And this is where, in my opinion, the largest impact from Redemption's rotation will be. I don't see these cards getting backfilled. In fact, I'll take it further and say they shouldn't be. Furthermore, I think that the piloting support in Redemption is a big deal. Nearly every set after has added some sort of pilot, at least one or two, which means that the mechanic itself will continue to be supported. But as far as building a specific deck around it as a primary mechanic, it will be increasingly difficult if equivalent backfills aren't prevalent in ARH8. Last and certainly not least, Redemption's leading blue card, Jarkai. Jarkai has been an ever-present deck archetype since its inception. Losing this is a massive impact to the meta. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing that it's going away, but one can't argue that the presence of the archetype hasn't been a net positive for the game as a whole. I believe that the meta will also be missing some of the fringe decks that became possible with some of the major plots dropped in Redemption. Watch Your Career with Great Interest has opened up some really interesting and inventive deck concept over the last few metas. It's going to be a shame when that comes off the table. Additionally, one of my personal favorites is the Tick Up Trooper plot, Relentless Advance. This is traditionally paired really well with someone like a Pyre and puts a clock of sorts on the game. While it maybe hasn't necessarily driven the meta, it's always been there and remains a solid build-around plot that I'll be very sad to see go. Everybody Profits is another fan-favorite damage from hand card that has seen a ton of play. Despite its prevalence in decks to this point, it still seems to catch me off guard from time to time. This one leaving will leave a 2-card hole in a lot of yellow decks. Den of Thieves has been a basic staple in yellow villain decks since its release. I mean, because why the heck not, right? This leaves yet another hole in those yellow villain decks. Now, I would be remiss to not give some attention to good old Rackle Hardeen, at the very least because our boy Wook would be very sad if I didn't. Rocco is a well-designed card in terms of the usage of Detect. Even without Detect support, he still works really well. This is a card that could easily come back in the future. I'm not saying it will, but what I am saying is that even without any Detect or Spy support, this card still works and works well. That said, with the evolution into dual color characters in the last few sets, I can't see this version of Racco sticking around. Rallying Cry is a small but very useful card that has seen a lot of play in hero decks over its tenure. I think it can be easily replaced, but in terms of red-yellow or mono-yellow hero decks, it'll certainly be missed. Killian Lightsaber is a really cool blue weapon. It's an old standard 3-drop with redeploy, and has a neat design that benefits villain hero differently based on the deck. I personally would like to see this one come back, but again it falls into the something else can backfill it pretty easy category, so I wouldn't be too surprised to see this one fade away. Force Valor is another card just like the previous. Really good ability, neutral, and provides options. For characters that like to use specials, this card is phenomenal. But again, as with the before, there's no lack of current or future ideas for blue abilities, so it's probably the end of the road for this card. One event I would very much like to see stay ever present in the meta is Harness the Force. I think this card is really well designed and really should be a new foundational card. You really can't design anything that does what this does any better. It's totally necessary for some archetypes, and I think it would really hamper the format a lot in terms of special creativity if it leaves. Small Battles 1 and Fury are another pair of minor impact but will be missed events. These probably aren't worth doing a reprint or anything on, but the decks they fit in will likely be scrambling to find replacements, as these cards are pretty unique in what they do. Finally, we come to the battlefields. Redemption was a major player in terms of strong battlefields, several of which are still high impact to this day. Cloud City, Cyber Center, and Perimeter Outpost are all very good and very strong battlefields and do unique things. I wouldn't be surprised to see some of these return at some point in the future. Now sure, any set has its cards that are key to a format, and I'm not entirely sure that Redemption has that many more on average. I've spoken to the key cards, but those alone are not why I ultimately think this set leaving is such a big deal. Rather, it's the fact that the set that rose the bar is now leaving. ARH's design philosophy over the last few sets has been far more sustainable in the long run, at the cost in many aspects of letting some of the old stuff fly. Can you imagine if the ARH team had demanded another set came in and pushed the envelope above where Redemption was? Where would we be now? And that's really why this is a big deal. With Redemption out, while we won't decreep, it removes a lot of the upwards pressure. ARH can now make some good mid-tier, 2-cost, multi-day removal without everyone going, it's not Headstrong, it's not Power of the Tribe. And that's just one example, but hopefully you get my point. Redemption has been an extremely awesome set, and without a doubt played its role in setting the stage for ARH's destiny. It going away is an absolutely major deal, both in what we lose, but also in what we gain. Thanks for joining, folks. Let me know what you're thinking in the comments. Happy Friday, and as always, go Commando.